broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in Southern California, and in parallel from the Turfs Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show this evening.
We appreciate that very much. I'm Rob Starr, along with Miss Tara Balali, and the wonderful, because I have to say she is wonderful, because she really is another wild woman that I know in my life. It is Miss Chris Austin. She's the maven of water and in charge of Maven's Notebook. Great place to get your information. And welcome back to both of you ladies. I heard you were on, well, not I heard, you told me you were going on a trip, not together, but you went there to do clarify stuff, and that you went there for Aqua. And tell us about it. Give me your impression of it. Did you learn anything? Is it anything exciting, or is it the same old, same old, same old?
Well, I attended an interesting session on groundwater banking, the basics of groundwater banking, and they had a session on permitting. I could only be in one place at a time, and so sometimes I'm like, I wish I was in that other one. But there was interesting, stuff, good information there, usually is. And then Governor Newsom showed up on the second day, so there was a big brouhaha about all of that. And he gave a speech. He spoke for about 25 minutes. He sort of outlined all of his accomplishments, the administration's accomplishments, and he certainly has accomplished some things. So, it was sort of like a victory lap in a sense. But, there's a lot of questions about, what's going to happen with water policy going forward. And Aqua has set up a vision for that. I did sit in that session as well, with sort of suggestions for, priorities for the next governor. There's so many candidates in the field. It's hard to tell. And like, Tara, did you happen to, open up your ballot yet and look at the number of people under the governor?
I started reading, and then I fell asleep, and I was still reading when I woke up. It was forever.
There's like 50 of them.
I know.
And maybe even more. I mean, it's
I think I'm on there.
crazy.
I think I was like penciled in somehow. I don't know. It's weird.
So we have no idea who's really going to be governor at this point. Maybe we'll have an idea in the next few months, and then what will they choose to do? We've had, three governor administrations now that have really worked on water in kind of the the same project. Schwarzenegger, Governor Brown, and now Newsom. What are the chances that the next governor is going to take up the cause? That remains to be seen.
Do you know if he touched on, I know you had an article I was reading this morning about how money for the clean water is being threatened.
Yeah, they're touting their accomplishments at getting clean water out to folks in the Central Valley, and they've reduced. Notice, 300 to 400,000 people now have clean water when they didn't before. So the number now of Californians that don't have clean water in their homes, they believe is below 1 million. So that's quite an accomplishment there. I'm sorry, what was the question?
No, I know they were talking about that the clean water thing that.
Oh yeah, right. And that was the big question, or the big thing that people pointed out when they passed this law when he came into office. That we're going to set up the safer program, the safe, affordable. Somehow it's acronym is safer. I don't know exactly how. But anyways, they get money from the cap and trade, but the cap and trade funds, there's just less money for that this year in all the budget, and so the possibility that the funding for this program is going to be cut is real. Now, we have still some ways to go with the budget. This is the governor's May revision, and this is what they will haggle over with the legislature until they pass the budget bill in June, presumably. So, it ain't over till it's over, and it will, I gotta imagine several changes, lots of changes will be made in the coming month, and as we go through this.
Oh, he's current governor is thinking about, or thinking he wants to be president. That's fine, but there's a lot of cleanup that he's got to do to get the record straight in California before I think he attempts that. I mean, he's going to do it anyway. He's going to go for it, but I still think that could hamper him a lot. So I don't know how much they can cut out of the budget that they have now. It's quite large.
Well, and actually, in January, the governor puts out a budget with some numbers in it, but they don't really know what the revenue is going to be, because you don't know what the revenue is until April when everybody files. So actually, things have improved going into April versus what was in January. So the thing that I saw in my email box is the deficit was eliminated. But again, we'll see what happens. I mean, we still have the bills that are in the House to be passed, and what appropriations are needed for some of the legislation they want to pass. And this is actually the big week here in the legislature. They call it suspense week. And so all of these, 2,000 plus bills that have been submitted in the legislature and have been heard in all their policy committees if they have a cost to them of over $150,000, then they land in this thing called the suspense file. And this day, they are going through the file in a secret process, and they will just figure out. I'm sorry. My phone is ringing, and I can't stop it. Oh, it's my husband. Sorry, honey, I can't talk now. So they have to pick out which bills they're going to pass and which bills they're not. So, we'll see, or which bills in the appropriation sense will get passed on to get to a vote. Because we're not even, and they have until the end of the month to pass all the bills out of the one house. So we'll see. Lots of fun in the legislature. So.
Well, and I'm going to talk for a sec. I see you. So a couple things. One is, at Aqua, they did a DWR listening session for the California Water Plan, which I thought was really interesting, and I got to participate in. And it was fascinating to see the idea that, first of all, the new water plan only talks about funding for new projects and nothing about maintenance for our current structure, which I thought was very interesting and kind of a miss, which I made very clear, and I will continue to beat that drum. We have some good infrastructure that we need to save before we start building new infrastructure to make things cooler.
Does that mean they're not going to invite you back?
I mean, they can't stop me. That's the cool thing. So beyond that, it really will, I feel like, and the other thing that I said was really critical, and I hope that gets heard, is the idea that unless the legislature supports that water plan, it's not really helpful. Because if it's only the governor's water plan, as much as he's got, kind of a lot of sway, if the legislature doesn't back it, then there's no money for that. There's no funding, like all of the things. It just becomes another sort of ambitious idea. And I think that's the last thing he needs right now, is another ambitious idea. He's got a lot of them.
Well, but you see, the new water plan comes from SB 72.
Right.
And so they have funds to get this started. They need more to continue, but the plan is to go through each watershed on
every single one.
Not a basin, but a sub portion of our large hydrological regions. Yeah. So it's going to take a lot of money, and there's a lot of there's some question, at least from the environmental groups, as if they go through and try and figure this all out, is that all going to add up to 9 million acre feet? It may not. And then what do you do if it doesn't? I guess then you're missing your target. But it's an interesting plan. It's a lot of work to figure all that stuff out. So.
Totally. And if you get 9 million new acre feet, but don't preserve the 800 million acre feet you have now, then it isn't the 9 million that's not helping.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
But a lot of the programs they run, they figure, okay, we'll get money for this first part to start it, and then we'll worry about it down the road to get the rest of the money. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. And so we spend all this money and it's for naught, and that's a shame. So.
And that's why I feel like before it even launches, it really should have some sort of like resolution or or bill or something that codifies it so that it's supported ongoing, so that we as districts can reference it and say, we qualify for funding under the California Water Plan. Here's where we need funding. And then funding has been identified in certain pockets, and we're all fighting for that funding, but still, at least there's funding there, as opposed to right now where there really isn't any.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, because continuous appropriation means from the general fund. And, the general fund is that's the hard spot in California finance, because it's my understanding there's plenty of reason, and that's way off topic, but, there's a lot of things that are structured, this can only go to pay for that and nothing else, and the general fund gets left in the lurch. But yeah, funding, and funding for water projects, isn't that going to be an important thing going into the future? There's just so much to be done just to improve the infrastructure that we have, but also these increased drinking water standards, because as we find these things in our drinking water, we want to get them out. Increased water treatment costs, because now we need to be making sure, trying to get PFAS out and microplastics out, and all that just is going to cost more.
Well, everybody points to Prop 4, but there's not enough money in Prop 4 to do everything that needs to be done. There are 60 dams that are in like super horrible condition. 9 of them are high hazard. And that doesn't even include like dams like ours, which could be decommissioned even though they're not in horrible condition. So it's all really fascinating to see how much money is really needed, and the fact that we don't really want to look at it. Nobody really wants to know how much money we really need, because that is super scary.
And there's also a lot of hope / expectation that there'd be additional funding coming from the federal government. And that was somewhat more realistic a couple years ago, but I think it's less realistic now. The federal government seems to be working on funding less and, doing less and shifting more costs back onto the states, which then, just ties up more funds for the work that we have to do here. And we're just talking about drinking water infrastructure. I mean, the real elephant in the room is flood management infrastructure, levees, and all that stuff. And California is not the only state in need of, flood management funding. Certainly, the Midwest and all over the place. We built these things, back in the 1950s and 40s and beyond, and things, just are getting to the end of their useful life. They need to be, they need to be fixed. They need to be rehabbed, replaced. Like, I feel for those homeowners in Huntington Beach. They have backyards, and there's a major sewer pipeline underneath their backyards, and they all sign easements. 30 years ago, you signed an easement, whatever, you don't think much of it. They put up pools and stuff over this pipeline, and now they need to replace this pipeline, and they're having to take control of this easement and actually in several cases remove pools completely. Yeah, it's the homeowners are suing, as you might imagine. I mean, and that must be just a terrible shock. Read your disclosures carefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I think maybe you can give me some background information or behind the scenes on this. The California farmers are pushing back on the NGOs. So I guess they're trying to do the ag land and food security, targeting them.
Yeah, that's a refrain in some portions of the ag community to feel that the environmentalists are trying to put them out of business. And there are different degrees of how I don't know if you call it an extreme scale, but a scale of environmental organization, from those that are really radical to those that just would like to work with the farmers or other people discharging things and, to improve things. And some of them are litigious and some of them aren't. But yeah, they feel like they're under attack from the environmentalists, and that's what that story was about.
So both ladies had a good time at Aqua. It was worth going to?
Sure. But hey, while we're talking about stuff, we still have this issue of this Potter Valley project and the federal intervention in it, and which is really, yeah, so they want to take out these dams on the Eel River. There's two of them, but the major one is Scott Dam, and it's going to drain a lake, Lake Pillsbury. And the lake, there's community around the lake, and the people that really like the lake there, and the fishing and the recreation and the tourism that it brings to that area. And but we have this dam that's kind of become old and doesn't generate much hydropower, and so they want to take the dam out. Environmentalists, fishing groups are pushing for this, and tribes as well. It's not an efficient plant. And so they've been working to take us out, and then enter Rawlins, the Secretary of Ag, Federal Secretary of Ag, and she says that they have a buyer, a potential buyer, which happens to be this very small water district down in Lake Elsinore in Southern California. And I just think this has been kind of a funny bit of posturing. So the congressman up in the California, Jared Huffman is very upset about this and is opening up a congressional investigation into the Trump administration water grab. But there's no way that this little water district down in Southern California could get any water out of this, because there's no way, there's no path for that water to flow. This is on a part of the section of California that has no imported water, except oddly for this one, which comes from a tunnel from another watershed. But it's, there's no way that they could get any water out of it. And in California, we have this thing called Prop 218, which says that you can't spend any of your water district's money on any project that doesn't directly benefit your ratepayers, if you're raising rates. So I don't see how they could even get this through such a Prop 218 election. How would you frame that to your ratepayer, that you're going to buy this dam 600 miles north? So I think it's a funny bit of posturing, because it's impossible. So it's really funny to watch people, get all twisted up about what is absolutely not possible. That's my prediction. It's not possible. Unwind yourself.
But I guarantee you, they're all making money.
Oh yeah.
Some way, somehow, they find money. They're successful on that. I had one more thing I was reading that you had about this California new plastic recycling rules and regulations starting to spark with some organizations.
Oh, yeah, well, nobody likes them. Apparently not on either side. Too weak, too strong, too impossible to implement. We'll see how it all works out. It hasn't worked out very well so far. And when we tried this plastics recycling stuff, so.
They're not trying to push back and do the stuff in boxes?
Yeah, I didn't dig in. To be honest, I didn't dig into the article. But I do agree we should use less plastic, but it's just, making it make sense how we do that. So,
for all the years that we've been doing the show, I try to get people on from the bottling association, Plastic Bottling Association. They don't even respond to an inquiry or say, no, we're not available, or no, we don't want to do it. They just don't answer. And I don't know why they don't want to come and just talk about it. And I'm not looking to put a blame on anybody, but what do they see as the future? They must be thinking about something. I hope they are. But no one wants to come and talk. So I don't know what to tell you. So,
yeah,
there's no benefit to them. They're all about benefit, right? It's a profit-based organization. If there's no benefit to them doing a thing, they're not going to do a thing.
And there's a real lack of political will to do anything about the microplastic problem. I mean, we can't get a global treaty. We can't even agree to make less. In fact, we're on track to continue to make more. And it's not just the U.S. It's the entire world. As a matter of fact, the U.S. is not even the biggest plastic producer. Apparently, I believe it's Africa. It takes worldwide attention and worldwide political will, which just doesn't exist.
Doesn't happen. Never happens.
Yeah.
It's like NATO. You all know what NATO stands for, right?
What?
You guys know what NATO is? It's North American Treaty.
Oh, yeah. I know the real thing. I thought you were going to make a joke.
Yeah, I thought.
Well, I am.
I was waiting for the punchline.
Like Toro stands for Found on Road Dead.
It stands for No Action, Talk Only.
See, that's what I was waiting for. I'm like, I know what it means.
I know. I just wanted to see your expressions on your face. You were like, You're in the headline. Anyway, we appreciate that. So we missed you last week. We did good. But it's great, better to have you back. We appreciate you, ladies. So, Chris, thank you very much for joining us again every single week. We do appreciate that for our listeners. Please go to maidensnotebook.com, become a subscriber, get information right to your cell phone, your Macintosh, your PC, your tablet, whatever you got. It's great. I get it every single morning. It actually comes about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. So I see that's the first thing I look at when I get up. And very good. And if you'd like to become a sponsor of that, I'm sure she would appreciate that. It's also, it's a, what do you call it? It's a C3?
501c3.
501c3. So
Non-profit.
Yeah, so it's all tax deductible, and she would greatly appreciate that. So, Chris, thank you. I'm glad both of you ladies are back safe. And I know you had it was a small trip, but we always want to keep you safe. So, Chris, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you and talk to you next week.
All right.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. We're going to take a short little break, and we have our featured guest coming up. It's going to be an exciting conversation, so stick around for the second half of the Water Zone. We'll be right back.
Are you fed up crawling around, digging everywhere on the job site, trying to find those problems? Hi, my name's Sean, one of the coaches on the Site 1 training team. Today we're going to diagnose our solenoids using the ohm setting on our ProTrade multimeter. Very important, we have our controller off when we're checking for ohms. Then we make sure we're on the right setting using the right tool. We've got our ProTrade multimeter, we put it to the ohm setting, which is our upside down horseshoe. There's no polarity on a valve, so we can check either wire with either lead from our multimeter. We're looking for a reading between 20 and 60. Outside of that range, we've got to replace the solenoid. For more information on the ProTrade multimeter or to pick up yours today, come on in to Site 1 or visit site1.com.
Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. AquaTrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
Thank you very much for having me.
We do appreciate that. Maybe a couple things. You give us just a brief, 1 minute thing on just we'll have a lot of the listeners who may not know of the Irrigation Association. All right, just a little blurb on that, and then tell us about yourself. How did you get into this business?
Yeah, so the Irrigation Association, we're based out in the D.C. area in Virginia, but I'm regularly out to California, where water is always a hot topic, and it's one of my favorite states to visit, except maybe the long flight. But the Irrigation Association, yeah, that's always tough, coming our way. But
super, and it feels extra long. Like, I don't know why it feels like the world's longest flight from here to there. Yeah,
Okay.
I have no idea.
Andrew, you can stop here in Phoenix first and see.
No,
all right.
don't do it. Don't do it.
Well, the Western states are dear to us. The association's a membership-based organization. That represents really the companies and the people that make irrigation work for customers and for the communities. So we have members all over. Arizona and California, definitely a core area for us. And our focus is really just on how do we get our products and services and the know-how that we have to help people make their irrigation systems more efficient, to have the landscapes, the recreation, the parks that they want. And we do that in a lot of different ways. We do education, we do certification. I work on some technical standards and policy. So that's really what we're about. And you can check us out on irrigation.org if you ever want to look at more about us.
So, what role does the Irrigation Association play in professional training? Just kind of thinking about that. And how do you get past the farmers who don't want to do anything more than what they already do? Like, that's something I'm very curious about.
Yeah, so we represent both the landscape and ag sides of irrigation. And one of our areas on the ag side is we do have a variety of we have certified irrigation designers and certified ag irrigation specialists. And one of the ways we get people to participate in those, in addition to just demonstrating the skill and the talent that they have, is you're able actually through some NRCS programs, some EQIP funding, if you get those certifications and apply the knowledge you have, it helps speed up some funding, unlock some funding through NRCS. So that's one way we're working on the ag side. On the landscape side, California actually has, I know you talked about on the show before, the Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance.
Yeah.
And one of the requirements of that, when local governments implement it, is you need a audit when you do certain landscape activities. And so we're one of the organizations, we have a certified landscape irrigation auditor certification, and having that, both trains you to do the work and then opens up that work for you in California.
So, I know the answer to this, but I think our listeners want to hear from you. So what role does the Irrigation Association play in the professional training? And I know you have sponsors of those things. I know Toro is a big education sponsor with you guys for many, many years, I think since the conception. I'm amazed when I go to the show, and I've only missed one show in the 20 years at Toro. And what I enjoy, you're going to laugh at this, I enjoy the companies that come, or the wannabe companies that come and have a small chance to talk to people and pitch their wares. And your little library that you set up for all the books that you sell. And I'm amazed at the technical bias of all of that and how deep it goes into the subject. I mean, this is like you're talking college level, starting in kindergarten all the way up. It's amazing me the tools that you guys can produce out of that. And I think for me, that turns me on when I come to the thing. Seeing new people who have something that's new for the industry, and then finding technical books and things that give you information on everything that you want to know about irrigation and hydrology. So that for me is my reason for doing.
Yeah, I think I have a utilities background. I've worked in energy and water. I've done some other law, planning, and government roles. And I've worked in irrigation now for a little while, so I'm still getting up to speed. I actually have some of those books sitting on my desk right now. But we've had great volunteers over the years who've helped condense their knowledge into a form that others can benefit from. So that's one of the things we do. And then, many manufacturers have their own education programs, which are fantastic. We certainly encourage people to do those. But one benefit of us is a lot of times our educational content is taught by practitioners in the field who can tell you, kind of their opinions on what products, what practices work in different circumstances. So I think both of those are needed, education from the manufacturer and then also, getting to the field and someone who, will give you their take on what's the best way to do something in a given circumstance.
Yep.
So how how do you guys educate people on your IE, like your, on your programs, on your, on like smart irrigation months? Like, how do you guys handle, and like, what kind of programs are you involved in?
Yeah, our two biggest ones, really the largest, you guys have already mentioned, is our Irrigation Show and Education Week. We'll be in Las Vegas this year. And we have a really wide range of education, training. We call it IA University. So that's our biggest offering. We also co-locate at some other conferences. For example, we're regularly at the Outdoor Power Equipment Institute's Equip Expo in October. So we do a lot of those. We also partner with water utilities or other interested groups to put on trainings in a given area. So if there's a particular water issue or particular need or interest, we work with instructors to facilitate hosting a class in those areas where there's a greater need. So it's both conferences and then kind of going to the people.
I always say, you always hear the conversation or the discussion, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But I think it should be a little different, because when you guys come to town, it's what happens in Vegas should be spread out across the country on water.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I always joke it. Well, I had a joke, but I was just on a radio show a few minutes before this show, helping somebody out with some questions. And one of the things I always say at the end of our show is, if you like green, you got to have blue. And blue is important to make the green happen. And I think people really need to take a deep dive into what that all means. So I've been familiar to work on the committee with IA about the EPA Water Sense program way back when it first started. Can you tell us about that and what's happening with that? I see there's more people want to talk about different regulations, and they're trying to standardize on one instead of all these other different ones. And what's your policy, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we work really regularly with EPA's Water Sense program. At the federal level, it's a voluntary program. It's like Energy Star, when you go to the store and you're shopping for a dishwasher, a clothes washer, something like that, you see the Energy Star logo. Water Sense is like that. It designates products that meet a higher level of efficiency. The most common one being irrigation controllers on the landscape side. And way before my time here, a group of folks partnered with Water Sense early on to kind of develop standards that worked well for the industry, that worked well for customers, and worked well for water savings. So, at least on the landscape side, in the product category, we're not very heavily regulated at the federal level. But Water Sense is really important both for that voluntary program, and then what you tend to see is state and local governments often use Water Sense as a basis for some sort of state or local requirement. So the federal government and EPA Water Sense don't regulate directly in that sense, but a lot of state and local governments do use their programs. Sometimes it's incentives or other types of educational programming, so a whole range of things. But we pay very close attention to that organization and that program and partner with them in a lot of ways.
So how do those states handle irrigation licensing?
That is very varied. So in California, on the landscape side, the main way our certifications are used are through the MWLO ordinance, the Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance, which local governments can adopt. So it's not technically like a licensing requirement for irrigation, but it requires you to hold certain either IA or there's some other competitors. You have to hold one of those to do certain work. Texas, they're pretty independent over there. They have their own standard that they've developed. It's not really tied to the Irrigation Association. New Jersey, they actually use our irrigation contractor certification as the basis for their licensing. So there's maybe a handful of states that have programs that are pretty active. More states are considering it, and it's just something we're looking out for. And I think our goal is just to make sure whatever states are doing, that it is recognizing professionalism, recognizing the ability to be efficient, and is something that the industry thinks works, all around, right? The industry, the customer, the communities, and their water savings goals.
I think most homeowners really start diving into this when they see their water bill every month.
Yeah.
And they see when there's limits on how much water that you're going to be allowed, depending upon what your vegetation, your size property, and all of that's going to be. And and if they don't know it themselves, then they say, "Gee, I just have a mow and blow landscaping guy. I think I need somebody who knows a little bit more about the technical sides of things, talking about pressure, distribution, uniformity, plant water needs, soil weather, controller programming. It's technical. There's a science behind all of that. And the typical mow and blow people, they just want to plant your plants, mow your lawn, and make sure it's getting watered and it looks plush. That's the number one thing they want. And the same with big HOAs. I mean, they use tons of water, tons and tons of water, and you can see. I happen to know one that's got a big bill for going over their limits, and now they're getting clobbered by the local water district that they have to cut back, or they're going to charge them a whole lot more money. But once people understand that it's more than just turning a hose on and having a trigger on the nozzle or your thumb over the thing, it's understanding what you got to water. What are you planting? Is it native to your space? And then you start talking about ET. Years ago when that came around to talk about evapotranspiration, people just were thinking it's a little man gray alien that runs around, and they don't. Yeah, and I've been in the business designing irrigation controllers and the smart controllers long time ago, and so through currently. But what interests me is people think, well, if you get ET information, that's good. And I call a lot of controllers go by historical data, and I call that hysterical data, because I don't care what happened 30 years of data. Because all of a sudden you can have a weather change like nothing. It's just boom. And you need something that I think you should monitor the last 10 days. But then also, if you just water by ET tells you when you need to water, but it doesn't give you the feedback that you need as a soil moisture would do. So to me, a total system has to have both. Has to have ET information, has to have soil moisture sensors. So that way you know when you got to water and you know how much to water. I think that's really important. And then companies got to make their programming more simple. There's lots of good companies. You all know the top 3 companies in irrigation. I don't have to say anything about who they are. They've been in business a long time. They know what they're doing. But there's so much technical stuff to somebody setting up a real system that they expect it to water every single day because that's what they're used to. And when they see it doesn't water, then they just say, "Whoops, it doesn't work."
Yeah, I think that's both part of what makes our industry dynamic and interesting, but definitely also challenging, because you really have the product, the design, the installation, the programming, the management. And I think, very motivated DIYers can do a lot. And I think YouTube and other tools from the manufacturers, from the Irrigation Association help with that. But I do think a lot of times, particularly if you see a high water bill or you're not meeting your goals with your landscape, this is a professionalized industry, and employing those people, hiring those people, really will make a big difference for you. And one of the places you can look, so WaterSense, if you just Google WaterSense Find a Pro, there's a directory where you can search by where you live and find certified folks. Many of those folks are certified by the Irrigation Association. Like I said, there's some others as well, but I find that one easy to use and gives you the best chance of finding people in your community that can really help you with that.
I agree. And what you also do, there's continuing education for those people, so they can keep on going and learning more every time technology changes. That's a good part of what you guys do.
Yeah, I think that's, again, another challenge and opportunity. People are creative in this industry, and they provide a lot of innovative products and designs and approaches. And I think the challenge then is getting people to understand and deploy those. So a lot of opportunity for us and for the people we serve.
And with that in mind, are people going to see these things at the 2026 Irrigation Show?
Absolutely. And, I can't give you all the best, latest details. We have some wonderful staff who do that. But yes, one of the things we do is showcase new products that are already in the market. We have new products that are, in the early stages. They're not quite mass market yet. So if you want to learn about those things, our show in December in Las Vegas is a great place for that. And we also have some, in addition to our educational tracks, we have 2 other tracks. One's Industry Insights, that focuses on business and economics of the irrigation industry, the water industry. And then we have another track that is more research and new technology oriented. So those are great places as well to check out what's the latest.
So what's your position on pressure regulating spray bodies and what do you see happening with controllers, or what would you like to see happen with smart controllers?
Yeah, so, and you may have seen this, a number of states have adopted requirements to use pressure regulating spray bodies everywhere. And I think our membership is generally comfortable with where that is. Some folks still have a little heartburn over it. Some really like it. But generally that's been something that has been working well. I think we're up to 12 states plus the District of Columbia require those. There was an issue in Colorado recently where the state had adopted or passed a law that made some key changes to that in a way that didn't line up with product availability. So one of our jobs is to work with legislators or regulators or water utilities to make sure they understand, how to do what they're trying to do well. So at the very least, even if we disagree, what they're doing lines up with, the products available, the practices. So that area is relatively mature. I think you'll probably see more states require it. And again, as long as they do what most of the states have done, it's not something we push back on. And then irrigation controllers is another area that's pretty active on the landscape side. The California Energy Commission is currently considering a requirement that you sell essentially water-sense labeled irrigation controllers. We've been working with them to bring, again, some of that knowledge, expertise, and perspective to bear. That relationship's pretty collaborative, and I think overall it's heading in a pretty good direction. The rules aren't finalized yet, but we're appreciative of them and their willingness to listen and dialogue with us.
One of the things that I enjoyed very much and had the opportunity with you guys, I'm sure this is what you need when you're there, is taking a group of people from the IA and taking them up to Washington, D.C. and getting to meet the lawmakers in person.
Yeah, absolutely. We do that every year. We did it just this March. I led the group up there. We end up with about anywhere from 30 to 40 industry leaders, landscape and ag. And I think one of the most important parts about that is on the landscape irrigation side, we're really the only group that focuses on that. So whether it's talking with members of Congress or talking with the EPA Watersense program, they very rarely hear from people on that. So we play an essential role there. And then on the ag side, obviously there's many ag groups that we partner with and we have a lot of good relationships. But even for those groups, sometimes irrigation doesn't make, the top 5 issues, the top 10 issues, compared to some of the big money provisions in the Farm Bill. But one of the things we can really focus in on is bring those people with expertise in the industry to make that our number one issue. And so that's very successful. We learn a lot. We network a lot. We make connections, and this year was another great one.
So with kind of going back to some of the equipment that we've been talking about, what's the deal with high efficiency nozzles? Because I know that they're super popular in like a lot of the conservation kits that I know I've seen other districts give away. So yeah. What's your situation with that?
I mean, it's like the status on Facebook, it's complicated. Big picture, I think there are different theories of what makes a high efficiency nozzle, and there are many great products. And, sometimes there's a higher efficiency sprays, sometimes those are MSMTs, and there's different ways of thinking about that. So WaterSense was working on a specification to kind of define its view of what a high efficiency nozzle is. And they paused that in part, I think, due to changing politics, in part to give the industry time to talk more about this. So that's something we continue to talk about, like is there a right way to think about that? Or are there a couple right ways to think about how to distinguish high efficiency nozzles? And there's some standard making going on as well at the moment. But I think it's important to think about too, one challenge is when you are designing a new system, you can use all sorts of nozzles, you don't always, maybe not every single one, but you have lots of choice. When you're retrofitting an existing system, sometimes you might end up where you just need to change like for like based on how the system's designed. So I think with like a long view, one concern of ours would be if if we say only this type of nozzle can be high efficiency and only it can be sold, we really do worry about those repair and retrofit situations where, a homeowner is just looking to swap some heads that aren't working right, and will they have the product selection that they need? But big picture, we're supportive of all the different efforts to develop those products. We think that's a good thing, and I think we're making progress on talking about the right way to test them, the right way to kind of think through how you measure efficiency.
So, not a loaded question, but just to ask you something technical.
Yeah.
We're talking about nozzles. So what happens, there's a lot of companies making nozzles, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of them across the world. So say one company has the lowest rating that you can get, the most efficient, and nobody else can come close to that. What happens? What position would the IA take for efficiency?
Yeah, I think we always seek, and so does WaterSense, right? When they develop a spec, they always seek to have multiple products that meet that requirement. Mm-hmm. In the utility space, I did work on plumbing and some other energy products before that, and that's similar for other programs. So I think the good news is whatever direction we go is likely to include or should include multiple products. And if it didn't, we would take issue with it. I think we need competition and we need choice, right? Both for our members and then for the customers. So I think we would have a dim view of something that just said
I totally agree. That's what I wanted to hear that from you, because that's what I believe in too. Because we all in the industry want to spur technology and be the best that we can. And every company makes. The big companies make all the same type of product. They all make nozzles, they all make rotors, they all make, drip and all this stuff. But one may have a little better spec than the others. But to me, that turns on competition to get better and try to be the number one if you can. But you also don't want to alienate the rest of the party on it either. Like you said, that's not the smart way to go. You don't want to alienate some company that, I can't sell my biggest line of product because it doesn't meet the lowest standard here, or things.
I think too, like you want to have, early on in the innovation cycle, you have multiple approaches to a problem, right? If you're thinking about cars, some people have hybrids, some have EVs, some want to do, all the different proposals that have come up over time. And at some point, I think, it'll be more clear what the best approaches are, or maybe it's even a different approach for different contexts, right? Like for someone living in a rural area, an EV might not make sense, whereas a hybrid would, So I think it's similar in our industry. We're innovating, and if you close down the scope for innovation too quickly, I think you'll miss out on some potentially good things.
Well, as a longtime member of the IA, I appreciate you joining us and being with us, and I will see you at the IA show, doing some live radio shows there. So we want to get you there, have you come on the show and bring some of your guests that you want to bring to us, and we'll get them involved in that. So that's all I got to say today. Thanks for joining the Water Zone. As I tell everybody at the end of the show, if you like green, you gotta have blue. Join us next week. There's some great guests coming on, and most important thing is have a great weekend and be safe.
Linda is sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.